All right, let's bring this to order. Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors Finance Committee meeting Thursday, March 5th, 2020, 4 p.m. Main conference room, County Administration Building, 1 Center Street, Chatham, Virginia. Call to order, please, and roll call.
All right, Dr. Miller, Mr. Davis,
Present.
Mr. Ingram,
Present.
Mr. Scares.
Here.
Now we'll also know that we have Mr. Dudley and Mr. Warren in attendance.
Any revisions to be added to the agenda? Seeing none, what's the board's committee's pleasure?
Make a motion that we accept the agenda. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right. On to item number 5, new business. Mr. Smitherman, would you like to take this forward?
I'll be happy to. Okay. So, thank you very much for being here today. It is a momentous day every year when we present you our proposal for the following year. We've been working on this budget. Departments started submitting things before Christmas. The heavy work came over the last 6 weeks, followed by a mad scramble during the last 4 or 5 days. But we feel good about what we're presenting to you today. I appreciate your attention. I'm going to go through the budget message basically in a PowerPoint presentation, tell you a little bit about how we propose moving forward in FY21 for the new board members. How this works is the administrator's charged with providing a balanced budget. After today, it becomes your budget, and you will have about a month, no, not even quite a month, to deliberate on how you differ or agree with the proposals that we're submitting to you today. So first of all, as a global term, the county financial situation is stabilized. It was in a precariously bad place several years ago, but this board or the previous board spent a lot of time, and staff spent a lot of time developing a 4-year plan to advance us financially and to make sure we can afford the services that the board wanted to provide. And when we did that in FY 2019, we cut to the bone. We didn't we did realize it. We didn't know what the effects would be. What we found is that we know where the baseline is now, and in order for us to advance in some of the ways you deem important, and as we discussed at the retreat, there's a little remodeling of the organization necessary. Some of that's taken place over the last few months, and we're proposing more in the coming budget. There are lots of unmet needs on the horizon at the landfill. We have talked to you many, many times, and we'll continue to make proposals to monetize the extra space we have in that landfill to help pay for the needs of our solid waste system and also to reduce the citizen cost of those needs. And the final overview point is that we're going to need some revenue in order to continue on the path we're presently tracking. And we're going to need it certainly by FY23. That is the year of our reassessment. We're hopeful that there will be sufficient revenue growth to continue advancing your priorities. But if there's not, we're going to have to find other ways to find revenue, or we're going to have to change priorities. So you've expressed your priorities for the next 2 years. I won't read these. Suffice it to say, many of these 7 priorities are addressed in this proposal. These priorities were adopted by resolution at your February meeting, I believe. And I've got them pasted on my wall next to my desk to keep me and us on track with getting things done that you want us working on. So this budget reduces the school appropriation by $650,000. I wanted a reaction. It's not true. We're adding.
I'm sorry, I was reading and I didn't even understand. See, that's what you do.
You already bored me.
Yeah, I already bored them so much I couldn't get past the third
Like,
slide.
really, what?
$650,000 additional appropriation for the school division. We will continue working up and finish the Gretna Library as well as Wayside Park with additional appropriations in '21. There's a 2.1% cost of living adjustment proposed for all personnel policy covered employees. That is the consumer price index for all southern states for 2019, 2.1. There's $195,000 in this proposal for sheriff's vehicles, and there are 4 new positions. That is something we have not done since I've been here, is to add positions, but we are proposing 4, the equivalent of 4, public relations manager, EMS coordinator, a new position at the pet center, a permitting position or half a position in our permitting department, and a payroll specialist that is 50% covered by us, 50% by DSS. And then finally, we've got $100,000 in here for you to create your community-based correction plan, which will make you eligible for a 25% cost share from the state on the jail construction project. There's no tax increase proposed. We did have some growth of about, well, not quite $600,000 in local revenue. There's actually about $1.9 million total new revenue in this budget, but $1 million of that alone is pass-through money for CPNT in our CS Children's Services Act operation. We are using one-time money in this budget. That's not something we've done the last few years. We did reserve some funds in FY19 for reassessment, $256,500. We are bringing that forward into the budget because we are starting to pay for reassessment in FY21. That's $1 million minimum to do reassessment. We're budgeting not quite half of that total in this budget. We're also budgeting some one-time funds through the sale of property of $900,000. So we've got about $1.15 million of non-recurring revenue balance in this budget. More than half the budget goes to education and public safety. 50% of the $70 million general fund, 56% goes to education and public safety. Evenly split at 28% each. 14% of this budget is just to repay debt. We pay about $8 million in debt payments annually. And then 14% goes to what everyone thinks government is, which is the library, administration, planning, inspections, finance, IT, pet center, clerk of court, board of supervisors. 14% goes to those activities. So I hear a lot, why is our tax rate so high? Why is it so expensive? Yes, sir.
When you back up, I got a question. How you want me to wait till the end?
Well, I'd rather you wait till the end, but we're here, let's talk.
No, I'll wait.
All right. I hear a lot about the expense of government. Tax rate doesn't mean much. In fact, Mr. Angier taught us that lesson a few weeks ago. And so we took some of, we took that angle that Chuck was talking about in the email to all of us, and we just thought we'd pull out real estate. How much burden is real estate taxes in our community? Well, it's $400 per person. That's what we pay for local government in Pittsylvania County. Every man, woman, and child is responsible for $400 of what we do, $399. Well, that's at a 62% or 62-cent tax rate. In Campbell County, it's a 52-cent tax rate, 10 cents less, but only $22 less actual impact. So this is a measure of what the burden of our taxes are. Franklin County has almost an identical tax rate, yet they pay $642 per person. So I'd submit to you, it is a very economical place to live as far as government burden goes. In Virginia as a whole, there's only 9 states that have less tax burden than Virginia. So it's all relative, that's my point. And tax rate doesn't really mean anything. It's not what the rate is, it's how much you pay. We do continue to pay down debt. We paid down $32.9 million worth of debt since 2016. And we do have a good bit still outstanding. The super majority of that is schools at $51 million, $1.5 million at landfill, $3.6 million for lease bonds, and $1.8 million at moral obligation. 3.6 lease bonds is the borrowing the previous board took out to pay for the chiller at the courthouse, to pay for a new dozer at the landfill. Several immediate needs that we had to deal with. We had to borrow some money. And then moral obligations, those are outstanding bonds for Cane Creek Industrial Park and for Panacea or Panaceutics, which they are actually paying 100%, actually more than 100% of that borrowing. So we do, we have plenty of capacity. You can do whatever you want as far as building things or buying things if you have to stomach to pay it back. We have no problem with the capacity to borrow money. And you see over the next, let's say, well, that was a different chart. Let's say over the next 10 years, we will be in a significantly different place with debt. As you can see by the chart, continue to pay that down. So there's no lack of ability to borrow money for these big projects that we know we're going to have to do at some point in the near future. Our fund balance, we are on the right trend. You see this, it's a lot, what this graph should show you is it's a lot easier to spend money than to put it back in the bank. We spent it down extremely quickly from 2015 to 2017, and we are slowly building it back up. We're building it back in $1 million increments, generally, but we are building back up. The green line is our fund balance policy. I have a new way, Vincent, of talking about prepayments.
Okay.
So, and it's that shaded line at 2019, that shaded bar. That shaded bar in 2019 is the amount of money that this gentleman collected on the June 20th billings. On June 30th, 10 days later, we had $1.7 million less dollars in the bank. 100% of the money that Vincent collected on June 20th was to be spent beginning July 1st. But we used $1.7 million of next year's money in the previous year. It's a structural deficit that we will eventually get out of, but it's going to take us a long, long time. We need $16 million contributed to our fund balance to maintain our policy. And there's lots more we could talk about on that, but I hope that explains the nuances around counting fund balance. But we are adding to it. We are on a positive trend, and we anticipate it to continue in 2020, in this current year, 2020, and again in 2021. So when we started this exercise, we had a 4-year plan. Our 4-year plan collapsed early, but we're still tracking. We wanted to show you our progress on our 4-year plan. We're actually on pace to contribute much more to fire and rescue services than we had anticipated, more to employees. We're spending a little less on health insurance, projected to spend less on performance-based merit increases. We are projected to spend less on school funding than we anticipated. We are putting in less money in the Economic Development Fund, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. We are contributing less to fund balance. We are contributing less to reassessment, less to capital reserve. And the last one is revenue. We anticipated to be receiving revenue from the Mountain Valley Pipeline project by now. We are not. And you see the difference in income. So that last bar, that last tall blue, was supposed to be credits in, and it's just not, it didn't happen. Hadn't happened yet. We don't know when it's going to happen. Hopefully, it'll be next year, because their payment would exactly cover the hole we're plugging with one-time money this year, or in 2021. So for school division funding, in 19 we added $1.6 million to their allocation. In FY20 that we're currently in, we added $500,000. The coming year we propose $650,000 more. They asked for almost $1.5 million. I was able to squeak out $650,000. So there's quite a difference between their ask and our recommendation. We do hope that will be sufficient to implement their third phase of their pay study. And as you know, they have significant maintenance needs to the tune of $45 million that are, as of today, unaddressed. But if the governor didn't sign our bill today, maybe he will tomorrow. And our citizens, if you let them, will have the opportunity to add 1% to the sales tax, which should cover 100% of the maintenance needs of the school. Meanwhile, school enrollment has continued to decline. This graph basically shows the blue bars are our contributions to schools. The red line is student population. We're down 468 students over the past 5 years. Public safety is the other 28% of our budget. So that's 28% of 70 million on that graph. Here's 28 million. Or 28% of 70 million on public safety. Generally, just to show you where our public safety dollars are spent and how they've changed over the past 5 years. Courthouse security continues to be a concern of ours. This fund, the Courthouse Security Fund, which is funded by fees in the court system, was designed to be self-sufficient. However, the costs that we have incurred with our courthouse security measures, particularly personnel at this point, are causing this fund to be depleted. It should run out in 2021. And then in 2022, we've got a pretty major hole that you're going to have to fill in the general fund if we can't figure out a way to reduce costs. Our EMS our EMS response continues to be one of our things we're most vigilantly watching. We still have 4 departments that aren't making 40% of their calls. Your Fire and Rescue Commission has been meeting, and this is one of the issues they're talking about. They're talking about raising standards for people to get your funding. We talked at the retreat about implementing. Did I get that right? Is it 8 medics for 4 trucks? What was the proposal?
I'm sorry, the QRV,
Yeah.
4 minutes to 2 trucks.
Okay, I got that wrong. 4 medics for 2 trucks. The reason I didn't worry too much about getting that right is because I couldn't fund it. It's not in there. It was about a $420,000 cost. And we're just not in a place where we can do that right now. And the purpose of that, of course, was to supplement our volunteer staff. So economic development, this budget, we originally planned in our 4-year plan to contribute $750,000 to the Economic Development Fund. This fund is used for grant matches, it is used for incentives, it is used for infrastructure, any investments that we make in economic development. There's only $250,000 proposed instead of $750 in this budget, and you see in the green our hope as to where that fund will be. As of today, which we couldn't have said 2 years ago, we are covering 100% of our obligations in economic development. We have enough money in the bank. We don't have enough money in the bank for what's next, but we certainly can cover all of our current obligations. We've also been extremely successful in economic development over the last 30 months. We've announced 1,509 jobs with an average salary of $41,050. $466 million of new investment. The newspaper gentlemen should make this their top story because it is working, what we're doing, and you guys have made it your #1 priority, and our economic development department is having success, and more success to come. The Pet Center was probably our most hand-wringing thing this time last year. James had been on staff for maybe 8 weeks this time last year. He was taking over from the Lynchburg Humane Society that canceled their contract to operate our facility. We put some lofty goals in front of the Pet Center this year. They had to raise $200,000. Well, in the first 8 months, they've raised $202,000 in cash and in-kind contributions, including a $75,000 Petco Foundation grant. But we're looking to get bigger and better in that. So we are working with several members of the community to create a nonprofit organization, a Friends of the Pet Center organization that can go out and raise money to cover these costs for us. Particularly, I think their mission is going to be to cover medical costs so that we don't have to appropriate funds for medical. And in a couple weeks, maybe you saw the picture, maybe you didn't buy there, the new SPCA doggy bag thrift store is going to open, where we're sharing the proceeds in that with SPCA. They're running the store, we're providing the space. But in order for us to get where we want to be, which is being in endowments, being named in people's estate and will, getting in front of major funders, and then, quite frankly, just managing the regular fundraising activities, we've proposed a position for the Pet Center to handle those activities. This is a new full-time equivalent. I think our all-in cost might be $45,000 with fringes. This position is being funded structurally by the savings that we've been able to realize, that Mr. McLaughlin has been able to realize through operations this year. He's coming in considerably under budget, we think, this June 30, and believe that we can fund this position and use it to raise more money without increasing net costs at the Pet Center that we budgeted in FY 20. So let's slide. Must be hidden. That's all right. Transitioning to our sanitation, we have, and I'm sure the two gentlemen that just ran for office, we routinely get asked why we have to pay this $120 fee, why can't it be repealed? Well, it's like we said before, it's all relative. So in Augusta County, which is the same size as us, and size does drive the cost to a significant extent of this service. Augusta County has 11 collection sites and a regional landfill, and they get away with only spending about $2.5 million on garbage. We spend $3.25 on garbage. Bedford County spends, let's see, where is Bedford County on that chart? $6.5 million. They have 25 collection sites, and they own their own landfill. We have 33 collection sites, and we own our own landfill. We're doing it for $3.25 billion. I'm showing you this because, again, it's all relative. We could be in Fauquier County, which is the exact same size of us, half the size in area, spending $12 million in garbage. Or Henry County, that's only spending $1.7 million, but they only have 7 collection sites, and they do not have a landfill. So, you know, if we want to pare our collection system down from 33 sites to 7, we can reduce cost. We will not increase customer satisfaction by doing that. So there's a depiction of how we compare with some of our peers. But this is how we move the needle for our citizens. We have 150 years of life in our landfill. At our current rate, which is the first bar, over the next 10 years, we will bring in a little over $30 million, but we have about $36 million of expenses over the next 10 years. We're short $6 million. That money must come from our citizens. There's nowhere else to get it unless we bring other people's trash in. So if we just take our flow from 42 tons to 72 tons, just adding 30 tons a year, 30,000 tons a year, that should be thousands, by the way, we will realize a profit of $3.4 million. We will not have to increase any expenses. The only thing that will happen if we bring in 30,000 extra tons a year is we will accelerate the time to which we open a new cell. That's in that cost. So over 10 years, we open a new cell, and you get $3.4 million in your pocket, free and clear. If you get 102 tons, and these are weird numbers, but they correlate to what we know is going on in the market, and they're the accounts that we think we could realize. You make $5.4 million profit over 10 years at 102 tons, and your life expectancy at the landfill will still be over 100 years. We have an incredible asset at the landfill, and it's going to expire if we don't use it. I'm very passionate about this topic because I think it has the most opportunity to positively affect our citizens long term. Costs almost $4.5 million to open and close a cell. Those are two events that happen simultaneously. So yeah, we can have, if we can bring on 152 tons and still have 80 years of life in the landfill and make $8.7 million over 10 years. So we've been working on our convenience centers. I hope that everyone sees that they are much cleaner than they've ever been. They're much brighter and safer, easier to get in and out of. We've installed cameras, which have been very valuable in making the above three things happen. We have shut down a lot of the out-of-county waste that's coming into our county. And contractor use has slowed. We still have a problem with commercial folks using our sites, but it has slowed down some. But we still have lots of violations and abuse. And I'll show you some of those type violations that we see frequently. But first I want to show you what we've done with convenience centers. This is the 622 Broswell Convenience Center a year ago. That's what it looked like. And it's important to us that since our citizens are paying this fee, that they get benefit and they see and feel benefit for what they're getting. And cleaner sites and safer sites and brighter sites, all those are some of those benefits. But this is what we want to happen at all of our sites. We want to transform our sites into a truly positive experience that is this design, same site, certainly changed the use of the site. I remember people saying, nobody's ever going to stay within those lines. They're going to drive wherever they want. They follow those lines like they've been there their whole life. So this is what we want to happen throughout the county. But we still have this problem. Rockford is one of our most used by volume sites that certainly over the weekend creates a large problem. There's a lot of people that live around here, and this site's not sufficient to handle the volume. So we're in the process of building a new site that will alleviate some of that pressure. This is at the corner of Bel Air and Highway 29. This will be our new regional site, the largest one that we operate, and to collect the most varying goods at this site. But this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to improve the system and make sure that our citizens get value for their contribution. Like I said, we still have problems. These are contractors using our sites. These two guys with the hot water heaters, they were saying, if we just replaced the hot water heater in our house, but Richard had them on camera bringing 4 in the week before. I don't think they had 6 hot water heaters, but that's what's happening. So all these people got fined. We've collected, how much, Richard?
This year, almost
$30,000 in fines, and it's making an impact. And most of these are not going to your citizens. These are not going to the people that are paying the fee. These are people that are trying to get away for free. We still have a problem with tires. We collect tires now. We didn't used to. We charge $3 a tire. You see the guy in the red truck, he's stacking his tires in front of the sign that says no tires. It's crazy what people do. And they get fined for it. And they won't do it again, I'm sure. We have a public urination problem. I'll just let that sink in. Men and women.
Move on to the next.
We do not discriminate. We will find you regardless. And we still have scavenging problems. And a lot of people say, what's the harm? They're recycling, right? Well, first of all, we got a safety problem here. That's a kid getting down in that open top on the right. We also have a safety problem with aggressive scavenging. People that are threatening to our citizens. And I've heard it many times that people felt scared to go to our site because certain known people would be there scavenging. So we still have that problem. Here's another problem we have that we don't have a lot to say about, and that's solar. All of you know that we have advocated for changes to the solar legislation. We're getting so we've got $500 million worth of development on the books. If all of that were to happen, excuse me, that's not right. It's 400 and, I can't remember, 400, let's call it 400 million. Oh, there it is. Left out a zero. That should be 400 million projects, $400 million worth of projects. We can only get 20% of that $400 million tax. So $400 million tax at our rate is $2.5 million. Legislature has taken away $2 million of that. So if all these things come to fruition, our revenue is only $500,000 instead of the $2.5 billion of assessed revenue that we should be receiving. We also spend an inordinate amount of time in our planning and zoning division on these permits. They're complicated. They take anywhere from 36 to 48 hours of staff review time to process, and we charge $195. We have one project out there I think is worth $150 million, and we charge them $195 to run through the process. We're spending anywhere from $1,600 to $2,000 to process their application. We're proposing, the only fee change we've proposed in this budget is a $5,000 permit fee for utility scale solar farms. There are a lot of unfunded requests in this budget, and this is where your work begins. We have squirreled away a little shy of $1 million to fund $2.6 million worth of requests. A lot of these I know you're going to want to do because they're part of your priority list, like the recreation master plan. That's the first step in a countywide or comprehensive sports complex. So I know you'll want to do that. I know you want to match the Bulletproof Vest program, and you may want to match the money from the Ringo Rail Trail through FEMA, because that was washed out during Hurricane Michael. All of these things are on the plate for you to decide how to move forward. The Sheriff's Pay Study and Sheriff's COLA are now in contingency because we still have not heard from the Sheriff that they want to implement the pay study. If they do want to implement the pay study, these two automatically need to be funded, and your $1 million would be reduced by $250,000 just to fund those. So there's a little write-up in the back that explains what each of these items are, and we'll be talking about your priorities on this list in the next couple of days. So going forward today, because of the tight time frame that we're on, we need to advertise a budget. You can always come down, but you can't go up. So our recommendation is today that you advertise this budget for comment and for public hearing, which will be on March 26th. We will have our first budget finance committee meeting. The finance committee will meet, I'm sorry, that's wrong, it's March 10th at 2 p.m., not 4. March 10th at 2 p.m. The finance committee will meet. We'll be inviting the constitutional officers, any outside agencies that have requests that they would like to present to you to speak on that day. And we will also on that day begin reviewing the unfunded requests and doing whatever you need to do to make good decisions. We will be out with our road show to all the high schools beginning Monday, March 9th at 6 o'clock. We're going to be at Tunstall on March 9th, and on March 10th we're going to be in Gretna. And then there'll be 2 more meetings the following week. And then by April 2nd we have to adopt the budget so that Tennessee can get its bills out. So, Mr. Warren, be happy to answer your question or anyone else's.
Yes, sir.
I noticed on starting out, you mentioned that on page 2 of the different summary that we had, our revenue, our fund balance on June 30, 2019, showed us $1.7 million short. Did that reflect all the tax revenue that has been received that would be paid, actually paid out as part of the budget over the next 6 months? Because I know we moved that date to a later date.
Oh, did it get pulled back in?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
It got pulled back in. So what percentage did we collect that was pulled back in?
Well, the payments that came in were $22,141,000. That's the, and didn't we say it was about 40 million? And it was about 50%. We did get about 50%, and that is just for the due one period, which was due June 20. So anybody that paid for the due two period, that is not in this $22 million figure.
So we actually
That money-
collected more money than this.
Right,
But it has to be
exactly.
banked in the next fiscal year because it was due in December.
That,
So that's a prepayment. That's actually
That's booked
considered
as
a
a
prepayment.
prepayment.
Right.
that,
it's
and
booked.
that was what I was getting to. So I didn't want anybody to think we were actually technically cash flow standpoint, $1.7 million. The second question, along those same lines is, this number doesn't reflect any of those flow-throughs that occurred during that 6 months process from the state or fed, right? Where they send us money to pay to the school system or DSS, none of that's reflected.
Oh, this is just local, this is just.
Just local
that-
money.
mhm.
Okay, there's nothing. When you talked about general fund balance available, I think we forget sometimes that, and I think you said it, but I think we need to emphasize that since changing the mindset of the board 2 years ago, we have increased our fund balance by $1 million each year. So it's apparent that we have better fiscal responsibilities now than we did. Also, we are, at this point in time, we don't have any debt that we're paying interest on.
No, sir.
We are retiring our debt.
We're retiring debt really rapidly, $32.9 million in the last 4 years, 5 years.
Which is positioning us, well, the community and our citizens understand, is positioning us in a much better position to take on the debt that we know we're going to be facing in the upcoming future, near future, with the jail and courthouse and possibly school.
Your ability to fund the projects you know you have to do, like the jail, is so dramatically better because of this, if the 1% sales tax goes up. Because that's $45 million worth of need that the school system is going to get paid for that's not coming off the real estate. And then you have the capacity to build a new jail. But I want to say...
I want to say this too, or ask this question of staff. You know, it's easy to say we've got debt capacity of $140-some million. But with taking home that kind of debt, don't be naive. We have to pay it back. So it's easy to say, yes, we can go borrow this much because we got this, but then on the other side of it, it's no different than your household, when we're talking about different numbers for most households anyway. You gotta have the ability to pay.
It's all about
The debt capacity is based on 3% of all your real property. So that's as if, you know, we have collateral in everybody's land and their homes and their cars, and I mean, it's all of the property that's been assessed by the county. So it's like $4 billion, and so that's what it's based on. But yes, we all that live in these houses and own this land have to also pay this debt.
The next thing I had was on per capita tax burden. I like that you included this chart, and I thank our friend, because I think he kind of brought it all to our attention. But I think we'd be remiss not to admit that there's some things that drive our rate to be a little higher. We have expenses that everybody you compare to there don't have similar expenses. in relationship to transportation costs. I mean, nobody else on that sheet has the sheer land mass that requires 30-some odd collection sites, which increases expenses. Not only the transportation of getting vehicles and all to get to those places and bring them back.
Well, in 21 or 22, or whatever the number is, rooftops in the school system is a tremendous amount to maintain. And that has a lot to do with why they need $25 million.
And the other thing is, you know, one of the things that drive that number up is it's a needed item, so I don't want to be confused. I don't want anybody to take away from here that I'm not in favor of land use, because I am in favor of land use for agriculture. But when you have as much land in land use as we have, it drives the necessity for our rate to, on overall property, to be a little higher. In order to get the revenue.
We've got somewhere between 8 and 9 cents of tax deferred in land use. So you get rid of land use, you drop your rate to 60 to 53 cents, and guess what? We'll be less than Henry, who doesn't have a land use program.
But
They're
we
not
could never
deferred
do that
taxes.
because agriculture.
Sorry, Halifax.
Agriculture is such a big part of the economic development in Pittsylvania County. But so it's vital that we have the land use program to help support our agriculture. So we all understand that, but I think the citizens need to realize why that makes us, our number of rate, percentage of rate, seem to be higher than the others, but in actuality, you know, as the chart shows, we're not.
I think that
higher.
the interesting, I mean, if you want to see the tail of the tape, look at Bama. They're basically paying the same thing we are, and their tax rate's 22 cents more.
Yeah. And
So
they
it's
got
not about the
21,000 less
rate,
people.
it's about how much you pay.
And they got 21,000 less consumers.
Well, obviously, their housing stock and their building stock is much less valuable on the whole also.
And one other question is on the fly. I noticed that at one point you mentioned the purchasing of vehicles for the sheriff's
Yes.
office. And I noticed you emphasized there that there's a possibility we go to a lease program because we can better serve the fleet
Yeah.
and be more cost effective. You know, I would reference that we definitely have proven that out to be true through the school system, and the way they do their bus leasing program has been much more beneficial to them and more economic. So, you know, I personally would, I'd like to see the numbers, but I would probably advocate definitely that we do that.
Yeah, Ms. Banner and I attended a presentation on that. The schools, I mean, the sheriff's department has, let's just call it 35 vehicles with over 120,000 miles. We're replacing vehicles 5, 6, or 7 at a time. We will never get ahead in this game unless we do something differently. What it requires is a guaranteed investment over the life of the lease. We're proposing $195,000. That $195,000 we're committing to, though, for multiple years. And our thought process is, if we can get our deputies, that are road deputies, that are driving these old Crown Vics, into something safe and reasonable, it doesn't require maintenance, we can put, from here forward, those road cars on a lease program. And for those, like the lieutenants and the captains and the investigators that don't drive those number of miles, we put them on a regular purchase program. Replace those 1, 2, 3 at a time, and keep our road-going deputies in good cars. Sorry, thought process.
And is the sheriff in favor of that?
He is. We haven't got the final package from him as to how he wants to manage that $195,000, but hopefully we'll get it shortly.
Within that lease, do they have a buyback agreement?
They do.
Okay.
I'll talk to you about it
Okay.
offline how it works, but yes, they absolutely have a buyback program, and that equity piece is built into the lease programs, the residual.
Yeah.
Mr. Smithman, also, you mentioned the solar situation is 80% reduction. And then you said it declines for 30% relief. Do you have the schedule? You didn't in our original one you sent out to us. Do you have a schedule on how that declines from 80 to 30?
No, I don't. I wasn't able to put that together. We can certainly work on that to show you how, the devil of this detail is they're extending, and you guys know this, but for the public's benefit, they're extending the sunset of this tax-deferred program out to year 2030. But they're eventually stepping down the deferment from 80% to 30%. The catch is these solar panels, they depreciate like this. And as soon as it takes that dive off a cliff, well, that's when the chart changes. So the solar folks are still getting out like bandits. And I'm talking about not the owners of the land, but the developers.
One other thing is I was reading through the preliminary report you sent us, I noticed was we never feel the position of the person to aid in the Medicaid findings and all that the jail did.
Correct.
So is that in this year's budget? Okay, and have we moved forward in working that out? Because we felt like it would more than pay for that position. So
We got an update on that at 3:30 today.
It would probably be additional revenue to our budget, so, I know we can't expect that this first implementation, but future years, that could.
Except, look, does that money go to general fund or does it stay in that healthcare fund?
Well, if nothing else,
It's in the general fund.
It does.
Mhm, right now. And the
Because
money
we're
that
paying
we're
it out
putting in
now.
would go to inmate management, part of it would, and part of it would.
Yeah, but it's gonna cover expenses that,
But it
in
would.
that
Yes.
budget too, so
Yes.
ultimately it
But-
gives us more.
But the thought was that the position should pay for itself, so the money that comes in, it should be greater than the
That's my
position.
point, that's my point.
Right.
Yeah. So we're paying for those services.
Yeah,
now.
so what was the 2:30 update? 2:30 from the sheriff.
He wants to use, somebody to do some investigating work for him instead of DPCS. And so we got an MOA on that. And, we have not had a chance to look at it. But he did call me about it the other day, about what his thoughts were, and he had talked to Mr. Bebo, and he thought it was a better avenue for the sheriff to take.
Okay.
But we can certainly let you all know, what we find when we look at it.
I think to answer my question, that's all I have, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions from other committee members?
You got all nine.
Go ahead, Mr. Davis.
Landfill, what are we, what's the time frame on that one that we would want to look at taking other garbage?
Well, right now
Over here.
we're taking about 15,000 tons a year, or the equivalent thereof, from a private hauler that's bringing us the town of Bedford's trash. That's on a test or a pilot program until June 30th. If that continues, that would be a long-term deal. That we know there's another 15,000 tons from Bedford that's available. We're still talking to them about that. And if both of those deals come through, basically scenario 2 with 72,000 tons is in place. You're on path to make profit at that point. We've also identified other jurisdictions that have trash issues in the future, and it is possible that this time next year we could be into scenario 3, if that's the way you decide to go.
All right. Mountain Valley Pipeline timeline, you got anything on that? Have you heard anything?
No, sir.
All right, okay, if there was a tax increase, I'm just throwing this out there, but I'm gonna ask you. I know I didn't say we were gonna increase taxes.
We're not.
But, you never know, things happen, but if there was a tax increase, what would it look like, Ms. Vanderhyde?
Well, right now, you really can't.
It'd be 3 today.
Exactly.
We had 3 pennies worth of plugs in there. And if Mountain Valley Pipeline comes in next year, we're good.
Yeah, well, you
We'll
know,
make it.
right, but you know, the hope so, thought so, maybe so, should be so, still waiting so, looks promising so, hasn't worked out yet.
No, it
So the
hasn't.
thing is, we need something a little more solid. You know, the hope so, would be, should be, could be island. We've been waiting to get in our view. It just hasn't taken place yet.
So the worst case scenario for next year, we hadn't talked about this, but I've certainly thought about it. Our worst case scenario for next year, all other things being equal, which doesn't seem to ever happen, we would be able to balance the budget, but we would not return any money to that chart right there. We'd stop building fund balance.
Prosecution arrest.
Yes, sir.
Steve, go ahead.
How much land do we own in Philadelphia?
It's like 400 and some acres.
And a lot of folks are concerned about filling up the existing cell with other people's trash. There's such a disdain from where I hear about us taking in somebody else's trash, almost like we're dumping ground. And I've tried the best I can, based on what Mr. Hicks has helped me with, to explain to people that, you know, that is a vast area, and to fill up a cell is going to take a long time. You'll never see it. But we are mindful of our children and our grandchildren. So if that be the case, if we took in multiple clients, how many more cells could we possibly open if need be before we build that incineration plant we're talking about at $350 million?
Well, it's not really about sales as much as capacity, because some of the sales may be bigger than others. You know, we have one more sale in the current
It's sale C.
phase.
Phase 2.
Yeah, we have.
Open?
Yeah,
No,
it's not. It's planned.
It's been partially constructed.
But we've got to spend $4.4 million to open that third cell in phase 2. Then we go to phase 3, which is where we're borrowing dirt from now, if you remember going out there. And then the next phase, we go on the other side of the pipeline, and we've got a ton of land over there. So, and we don't know how many cells are available over there. But by volume, if we're bringing in 152,000 tons a year, starting right now, we have 80 years left. 80 years.
Which is about 3.5 times based on your chart before we take any of that land.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman. You know, we've invested a lot in economic development. We've got the mega parks and everything, and Lord knows we need the business and industry there. If it does increase, if we fill those parks up, how is this going to affect the 150-year cycle for the Pittsylvania County trade? You know what I'm saying?
Sure. I hear
You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, if we have the industry, of course, that's going to bring more trash. And how would that affect the lifespan of closing B, opening C, and going to another site maybe?
Well,
You understand my question?
Yeah, it depends on the industry. You know, a lot of these, believe it or not, there's, I think it's the Volvo plant in South Carolina, zero waste.
Okay.
You know, so things are changing in that world. I would not even.
Is this something we're looking at, maybe, if the
It
industry does
depends.
come?
Depending on who comes,
Okay.
certainly we would have to factor that in.
Sure.
Right now, you don't have
But
that.
garbage for them is wasted money.
That's right.
Yeah. Sorry, Richard.
No, you good, thank you.
I'd say right now, you don't even have that coming to your landfill.
Right.
Because it is only,
Sure.
you know, for household trash.
Go ahead, Mr. Moore.
I think, obviously, I've been an advocate for making it a true enterprise fund and receiving money. But I think you gotta remember, if we take the surrounding communities, we're not talking about New York and LA trash and all, we're talking about our neighbors. If we take that, there will be contracts in place that will be 4 or 5 years. They won't be forever contracts. And they will be renewed in those intervals. So, to speak to your question, if hypothetically Berry Hill filled up and it happened to be a big solid waste producer, it may come at the end of a contract period that we would say, it's not feasible for us anymore.
So we cut that
Yeah,
jurisdiction off.
that's right. But the other point you have to make is, which is a good problem, but I think this is more informational purposes. if we had those industries, that tier 1 or big tier 2 project that was to hit one of those, you know, we gonna need this thing to be more than self-sustaining early on, because our index is gonna change. So the funds we get to support our school system that is, in my opinion, one of the best in the state of Virginia, that we're very proud of, is gonna need more money from us. And that's gonna have to come through our revenue, because those projects for tier 1 and tier 2 are not gonna generate the revenue to make up that delta initially. They can't. I mean, based on the incentives.
So, let me show you how the index works. So we've contributed $2.75 million additional to schools in the last 5 years, but yet our maintenance of effort is only 2.6 million more than the composite index. The composite index keeps going up, and it's like we're in a race to stay ahead of it. But to think in 5 years, if we had to put in 2.75, we'd be in the hole with the schools. So it's a moving target, and it moves every time our relative wealth compared to all jurisdictions in the Commonwealth increases. We have to pay more for the schools. So
But we want to create that problem.
That's right.
That means
That's right.
we're
It's a great
in a
problem.
much better financial position as a county.
Yep.
And that's what you know.
Mr. Farmer, go ahead.
I apologize for being late. You may have covered some of this stuff. Mr. Smith, on the email we received here, this memorandum, it says that this year's budget, I guess, is roughly $6 million more compared to last year. Then you talk about some revenue in terms of 1.9, additional, CSA savings and different things. Can you walk me through that $6 million, where we're making up the difference between last year and this year?
That's such a hard question.
A lot of it's state money, a lot of it is schools. If you look at just their school budget, we're going from 96 million to 101 million.
So there's 5 million.
Because I noticed it's no real estate increase. The only thing I saw was the permitting for solar, it's only increase.
Yeah, that's the only increase. We've got some natural growth, which I think you did miss that, actually. We have some natural growth in real estate, personal property. That's about $600,000. We're pulling in $1 million of CSA money that's complete pass-through, $5 million of schools money complete pass-through, so that the local new revenue is real estate and personal property. So there's very modest growth in sales tax, things like that.
And the use of the one-time money, the 1.1, rough math there?
Yes.
That's just us digging in the coffers one time?
No, 2.56 $256,500 is money we set aside 2 years ago for reassessment. We're pulling that in because it's time to start spending money on that. And then $900,000 as a one-time sale of property, which I don't want to name in public. I'll certainly name to you on the side, but it's something the board's been briefed on. We do expect income of $900,000 for sale of property.
And then on your probably second slide, the budget highlights, regarding the library. I remember that last year. That was a 2-year commitment, which was last year in this coming budget.
Correct, and wayside.
Okay. What was the wayside amount?
150. So
Total or
our
just this year?
commitment is
Total.
78,000.
Okay, we split that in half.
Yep. 2 years.
Okay. And then
Of course, we've leveraged 850.
Yeah, of course, I know it's more than that due to grants. And then there's a slide of the PCSA, I don't know if y'all went over that, the 78.8. You talk about contingency, is that in or out of the budget this year?
Out.
So it's currently out. You're
Currently out, yeah. And it's written in there somewhere that says that if you agree with me to take it out, we have to have a public hearing to get that done.
That's all I got.
I think there's slides in here from last year.
This one?
Yeah, that's from last year. They're not supposed to be printed. That's left over from last year. So that one is about PCSA, is not 100%.
So we'll increase the fees to these solar farms
Yes.
from 5,000?
Yes, that's my proposal.
Absolutely.
Did you make it retro?
God, don't think I didn't think about it. That'd be $55,000, no, $45,000.
They're making out like bandits, but we need to cover our own.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting a haircut, an 8% haircut. I mean, we look like Richard when we get done. It's all gone. So it's nice to get some back, even if it is a nominal amount, it's at least cover our costs.
That's the only question I had, that 5,000 fee will cover all our capital costs?
Well,
If not,
yes.
I would suggest we raise it even higher.
Absolutely.
That's only thing.
You certainly have that ability.
Well, if it's costing us more to do this permitting process for those projects, we should.
Well, we estimate our costs about $2,000.
Okay. Any other questions before we move on?
Yes, sir.
Well, I will entertain a motion. I assume we have to advertise this budget, so.
And you all should have gotten a copy of what we will be advertising. There may be some tweaks to that. I did it very rapidly this afternoon, so that you all could have a copy of what would be shown in the paper. And one thing that I did notice on the school one is my last year adopted budget. All the figures are right, but the bottom line is the year before. So I found some things just sitting here as we were talking. But what you would be voting on is a proposal to advertise the school budget at $101,049,739, and that includes the local share of $19,486,709. And then the school in the county government budget, which does include that transfer and all of these expenditures for schools, is $186,116,529. And I think what Mr. Smitherman did mention to you all earlier, this budget cannot increase over $186,116,529. But you can certainly do things within that $186 million figure between now and April 2nd. So there is time for you to decide what you all would like to do.
I entertain a motion from committee members.
The motion.
Pardon?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
We'll get it advertised. One other thing, we have a separate handout that is budget summaries. You will get in your email box
Probably tomorrow.
tomorrow morning all the line items and everything, which is that much paper. Don't hurt yourself on that. If you have any specific questions, we're happy to
Or if you're
help you
looking for
find them.
something specific,
Mhm.
please
Yeah.
call me.
We'll find it.
Because the numbers, I mean, you can get bogged down just trying to look for something you're not familiar with.
Do we need to do any approvals for committee meeting dates, or?
Well, you set a meeting date for Tuesday, 2, and we can take it from there. At that meeting, when you want to get back together, unless you want to go ahead and settle now, it's completely up to you. Sounds good. So that would be the 10th at 2 p.m. in this room. And by the way, when you go home and read all this, because it is a lot to read, it takes, gosh, at least a half hour just to read the letter. Highlight what you don't understand or have more questions about, or that you would like to specifically bring up at the meeting on the 10th, and we'll get prepared to help you support your conversation.
Have any matters from committee members? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
Second. All those in favor, aye? Aye. What's next?
We have a meeting.